If you diet, you cannot say, I'm never going to feel hunger again. I'm never going to feel thirst again. It's one of those things that come with the territory. We are people, so we are feeling stressed. And the reason that we're feeling stressed is because many, many years ago, when we were cave people and we used to live out in the forest, we needed a mechanism that would protect us from any upcoming threat. So this is what stress does. Stress is a mechanism that is alerting us to threat. So when we feel threatened, our body is releasing a number of chemicals that is actually alerting us that there's something coming up, so you need to react. So if you think back in the days where, like I said, we were living in the caves, you walk in the forest, ever so happy, and suddenly you meet a tiger across from you. And what do? You start running. That's when your body registers a threat. The tiger is a threat. So your brain starts releasing a number of chemicals that is preparing your body for action. So what do? You run as fast as you can. You run for your life. Now, what else stress is doing is that it's getting you focused. You get this tunnel vision that is actually getting you focused. So if we go back to the tiger example, when the tiger is after you, stress is actually getting you to run as fast as you can. Because when you're in the forest, you have a number of options. You can kind of like stop and pick a stick or smell a flower. But this is not what you should be doing at that time. You should be running for your life. And that is what stress is doing to you. It's actually preparing you for that action. So stress is a physical response. We can never get over this. But stress occurs when we feel pressure. When we feel pressure, we feel that we cannot cope anymore. And nowadays, we don't live anymore in the forest. We don't have the tiger that is running after us. But that threat has been replaced with what we call nowadays the boardroom stress or the boardroom threat. So, we all have jobs in the city and, we have responsibilities. We don't have the tiger anymore, but we have the modern day stressors. So when we're in situations where we feel that the pressure that we have is higher than perceived resources to deal with the situation, then we get stressed. And I say perceived resources because this is not always the truth. Sometimes we have more resources than we think we have, but we cannot see things clearly because we are stressed.
And I'm sorry, somebody's asking if you're going to get a recording. Yes, you'll get a recording of this video with the presentation as well. So those of you who are having any technical issues, no worries. I will send you guys the recording.
Okay. So when we are stressed, we can respond in a number of ways. We either freeze and we do nothing about the situation, or we fight. It's the fight or flight situation. So going back to the tiger, you see the tiger, you have two options. You're either going to freeze, so, you're not going to do anything, or so the tiger will eat you. You're either going to try and fight the tiger if you feel that you have the resources to fight the tiger, or you're going to run away, right? So that's what we do today also. So think of a situation where you're stressed, like the boredom stressors that I said before. You're in a boardroom and there is a situation where you feel under stress. So one of the people, in the meeting says something that is upsetting you, or they're accusing you for not having taken proper action, or whatever it is that is stressing you. So you have the natural response that comes with it. So you either, start feeling really upset and, you want to respond back, but you're like, well, if I respond back, that might not be a good idea. This person is very senior. This is the fight response. Or you might be having the flight response, where you're sitting there and you say, oh gosh, I just wish now I could disappear. This is so embarrassing. So it's the fight or the flight response. So stress, like I said before, is something that happens to us. It's a natural response that we have to threats. And stress in itself is not a killer. It's like food is not a killer, right? Food cannot kill us, stress cannot kill us. It's our reaction to it that is damaging. So as we're feeling hungry, we eat. If we eat bad foods, then we might damage our body. Equally with stress, we feel stress. If our reaction to it is to stress, is not appropriate, then it can eventually kill us.
I'm just curious to ask, I guess on a scale of 1 to 10, or let's say 1 to 5, 5 being able to react to stress in a very, I guess, positive, good way versus a negative way. What do you guys rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 5? How well do you deal with stress? How well do you think you deal with stress? Negative 99, 4, okay.
Quite high.
Okay, 3, 4, good. 4, 2, 4. Okay, so
we're
good.
all over the spectrum, yeah. Okay.
4, 3.
Okay.
Nice. Okay.
Right. Okay. So some people can cope better than others, which is usually what happens.
As a executive coach, how would you rate yourself?
I used to be very stressed all the time, and I used to manage stress really badly. So I would snap at people, and especially those that I used to love. So I would go home and I would snap at my husband. But now I don't do that anymore. Okay. And I will explain how you can do that later, how you can manage stress so you don't have those snappy responses, you don't get irritable, you don't get annoyed with people. So we're just going to cover that in a minute. So we're talking about stress and how stress can kill us. Now, stress is not that bad, right? Because we said before, it's a response system. It's helping us to deal with certain situations. So stress in small amounts can be quite good because it actually gets us motivated to achieve deadlines. It gets us, up to speed with what we need to do, and it keeps us energized. The point is that good stress is temporary and is triggering an adaptive response, which means it lasts for a small period of time and it gets us to perform and do what we are meant to do. Now, when stress it becomes more permanent in terms of duration, that's when it starts becoming bad stress. So, and then it starts affecting the way we react and the way we respond to others, and also it starts affecting the way we are in ourselves and the way our body responds. So, stress, when it becomes chronic and it becomes excessive, and we are in a constant state of anxiety, then it has a disruptive effect to our body. So it can raise blood pressure, it can damage our immune system, is responsible for all sorts of autoimmune diseases, allergies, heart attacks, strokes, even for infertility. So good stress in small amounts keeps us energized.
And so somebody asked for how long, for example, so in terms of duration.
This is very, very dependent on the individual and how can one handle stress. So say, for example, if you are dealing with a project and, your boss comes to your desk and he says, actually, John, we just need to deliver that in an hour's time. You're going to get stressed. You're going to start running around. You'll get the tunnel vision, so you're going to focus on what you have to do, and you might deliver in an hour's time what your boss is asking you. Now, on the other hand, if you go to the office and every day you find yourself in a situation where you feel stressed and you worry that, somebody's going to come to your desk and you're going to have very short deadlines, and that is a continuous feeling, then that becomes damaging. But then again, it's up to the individual to start judging, well, is that becoming excessive? How long have I been feeling this way?
So it's long term as well, and it's I guess it's part of it is duration, and the other part is how intense that feeling is. I mean, I know I've had my share of days where I feel so overwhelmed for whatever reason, and the feeling that you have for at least, let's say you're stressed for 1 hour, you come home, you're just drained, you're physically, mentally just done.
Absolutely.
And I think I think it's duration as well as the impact of the stress.
And also you need to always be on the lookout for the effect that it has on your body. So you might be stressed, but if you can shake it off, that is obviously a good thing. But if you start noticing patterns as your sleep patterns being disrupted, you eating a lot, so you binge eating, or you have a reduced appetite, or your stomach gets upset, you're getting very irritable, you get snappy on people, you're short-tempered, or you have inability to focus. So then these are all indications that good stress is actually turning into a bad stress. Now the problem with bad stress is that we don't realize that we are stressed until it's usually too late. So the minute we realize that we are stressed, the good stress has turned into bad stress a very long time ago. And this is mainly because we live kind of like in a world where kind of being stressed, or giving the perception of being stressed, it means that you're busy, so you're doing good. So a lot of people kind of tend to, stay late in the office without having much to do. They want to give the impression that they are busy, and also the financial situation that we're living in, the economy that we're living in, there are a lot of redundancies in the big organizations. So, stress is much more than the tiger nowadays. But like I said, look out for the signs. And here this graph is a very interesting one, because it shows you what percentage of the American population, this is very much an American-based statistic, but it's still a very good indication. What are the effects that people feel when it comes down to stress? And it's interesting that 44% of the population tested said that they're lying awake at night. This is a very one of the primary symptoms of stress, lying awake at night, worrying about things and having all these what ifs, and equally irritability. Like I said before, I was snapping at my husband, and usually we do snap at the people who are nearest and dearest to us. We don't snap to those who might actually be the causes of our stress. Correct.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't snap at your boss.
Of course. Yes. So then what you do is that you take it home and you snap to your partner, which is not ideal. And then some other symptoms, overeating. So you will see symptoms of stress on your eating habits right away. If stress is becoming stress, you either will overeat or your appetite will go, but your eating patterns get disrupted.
And I think it's also, if I may add, it's all very much connected, because when you're not sleeping well, and then in addition to the stress, and then the not sleeping well, and then your body automatically craves sugar.
Exactly.
When we're tired, it craves sugar. So then you're making worse choices. I know when I have my busy days, I see myself reaching for things that should not be reaching for, candy bars and chips, and I'm normal. I don't eat these things at all, and I see my eating habits completely changed. If anybody wants to share about maybe some your favorite stress foods. I don't know, but I think it's all very much connected. And even somebody said that you lose sleep, absolutely. And somebody said you gain weight for no reason. That's what it seems like. You just gain weight for no reason. You know, everything slows down in the body.
Yeah, and like you said, it's a circle, right? You don't sleep well, you don't eat well, then you become irritable. As a result, you become short-tempered, then you start having headaches, you have an upset stomach, you don't feel well physically, and then eventually you become overtired, you lose motivation, you just don't want to do that anymore. You're like, oh, I wish I didn't have to go to work today. And that's when you know that you've gone too far, when you start feeling those feelings. And just to demonstrate how bad this has become, stress, and how it's affecting us, as of 2010, lifestyle diseases account for 63% of global deaths. That's a shocking statistic. Stress is a lifestyle disease, which means that nowadays people don't die because they reach old age or because they've been hit by a car, but they die because of lifestyle diseases, such as like eating disorders, stress, and these sort of things.
We were chatting earlier. You mentioned that out of those 62%, roughly 110 million people die each year.
Yes.
from stress particular.
Yes. Yes.
110 million people die from stress-related diseases.
From stress specifically. This is 7 people every 2 seconds. So you count 1, 2, snap your fingers, 7 people have died. 1, 2, there you go, another 7 people have died. That's it. It's shocking.
Yeah. It's shocking that we spend so much time preventing other diseases, you know, and I guess a lot of us, we try to, we say we're going to work out and, we're not going to smoke and we're not going to do this and etc. just to prevent certain diseases, but then we don't stop and think about stress and how much it's actually doing to us. And I mean, and I want to hear your opinion, but I think it's stress because you don't always feel it necessarily. You feel it, but physically it takes time to feel it. And often when we feel it, it's too late.
It is too late.
Because then your body is already inside. The stress is inside, deep enrooted into your body and into the system, and it's just breaking everything down. But yeah, we don't focus on that.
Yes, and we get so used to it. Eventually, we get so used to it that we just don't notice it anymore. We don't notice that we just run around stressed day after day. And if we take a moment and, observe the way we feel and ask, why do I feel this way? Why does my stomach hurt so much? Why did I just snap on this person? What did just happen? It is then that you just slowly realizing, what is happening. So what is interesting is as we said, 110 million people globally every year. That is a huge number. 7 people every 2 seconds. And this is all preventable. It's just a matter, of recognizing where we are on the spectrum. And like we said, low stress levels is, the everyday stress, I need to cross the traffic light, there is traffic, will I make it on time? That's low stress levels. Then the beneficial stress is where you have to meet a deadline. So stress is energizing you. But when it starts hitting the red, then it becomes harmful. And that's when, we start to really think what we do and how we do it. Now, what is interesting is that is a lot of literature out there that talks about stress and stress prevention. So there are a number of techniques that they're quite popular and people like to use. I mean, I have this slide here because I think this is interesting to keep it as a screensaver or cut it out and stick it on your wall because it's a good reminder of some quick wins, right? So be positive, speak to somebody, go outside, listen to music, meditate, all these are great tricks, and try and practice as many of these as you can. The only thing I would say about those is that they don't really go to the root of the problem. So you can slow down, you can go for a walk around the block, you can call a friend and you can vent, or you can listen to the music and you can forget about it temporarily. But all this is just temporary. It's just going to help you in the moment, but long term, this is not enough. So we need to start looking at something that is much more effective, and it actually changes the way you think. It doesn't treat the symptoms, it treats the cause. It identifies the cause and treats the cause. So I would like to share a technique that I usually discuss with my clients, and it's very effective. And like I said, it changes the way you think about stress, and that's why if you practice it, you will see that it has long-term effects. So if you take a moment and think of what it is that is stressing you every day, right? We all get stressed for a number of things. We get stressed about, the traffic on the highway, about, increasing unemployment, about the rain on the weekend that is going to ruin your barbecue, inequality in the workplace, the pay rise, name it. It's a number of things. And I would be interested to know what it is that is causing you the most, because that would be a very good point to pick up on these conversations. So if you would like to share your thoughts, that would be great. So take a moment and think of all the things that are stressing you on a day-to-day basis, and make a long list of all these things. And you might not be able to do that in a day or in 10 minutes. And as you go about your days, you might find that some things are more regular. So keep working on your list and see what is it that is stressing you. So once you have a complete list, then think for yourself, read through the list again and say, how many of these can I influence? So go through your list. If the first item on your list is, I am stressed about the traffic on the highway, can I really influence this? Well, maybe not so much. So, I mean, you're stressed about, war that is going around. You're stressed about, your height because you would like to be 5 inches taller, or you would like to be kind of 10 inches thinner around your waist, or, it might rain this weekend and it might ruin my barbecue. Can I influence in any way all these factors or not? Identify from your list what it is that you can influence. The things that you can influence are the things that you can work on and you can change in your life. The things that you cannot influence, warrior you like, they will just not change. So spending your life worrying about things that really are out of your control and out of your influence, what it does is making you feel helpless. So what you want to do is that you want to arrive in a situation. I made that in a circle because it just looks much neater this way. So if you see, the outer of the circle is the circle of concern, the inner of the circle is the circle of control or the circle of influence. On the outer circle, on the blue, the circle of concern, are all these things that you may be worried about, but it's nothing that you can do to influence them. The inner circle should include everything that you're stressed about, but you have identified that you can somehow influence.
So I think for some of our students, we have to add MBA studies, right? Corporate finance, et cetera, right?
Yeah.
How many are you? I just want to see if somebody can share what are your biggest stressors right now. If you can use the messaging system, just one item per person, if anybody wants to share. MBA assignments, yes. Okay. Top of the list. Stock prices. All right. Customers.
Okay. So these are some good examples, right? MBA assignments. You might be up to your ears in assignments, and also, you have a personal life that you need to manage, and you also might be working. So MBA assignments is something that should be in your circle of control. You can influence that. You just need to manage time in a certain way, right? Stock prices, worry all you like, but you cannot influence that, no matter how many nights you stay up awake and how much you worry about. So that should move out to your circle of concern. So, but what you can do when you worry about something like that, stock prices, don't worry about whether Apple is going to go up or is going to go down, because you're wasting your time. You can influence that, but what you can influence is the way you invest. So you should be spending more time in the way you invest and what strategy you use, and then stock price. And that's again an example.
Somebody also mentioned they're worried about running out of time. I'm interested to hear about that. Running out of time. I'm constantly worried about running out of time. But, we joke with my colleagues, we said we have a lot of projects coming up. And I said, whether we like it or not, this day will come and the day will pass. We cannot stop time. And all we can do is do our best. So, yeah. And somebody said coordination between current job and MBA program, doing things at the last moment. Yeah, I think time management is a separate topic. Perhaps we should discuss it on another webinar as well. I think that adds to a lot of stress for many people, especially our current students that are studying and working at the same time.
Yeah. So it's an interesting mix. Some of you worry about things that should be in your circle of concern. So for items that you have no control over, some of you are concerned about things that you can influence, like how you manage your time and how you manage, delivery of your assignments. Now, what is interesting is that most of the people around spend their time in their circle of concern, most of the people worry about things that they cannot influence. So what this does is that it makes you focus on weaknesses. So it makes you focus on what is not working, and it makes you focus on things that you don't have control over. As a result, you might be more likely to use blaming language and to feel more victimized. For example, somebody might be feeling that, I worry about inequality in the workplace, and I worry that there is no meritocracy in my organization, so how could I get promoted this way? This is something that falls into the circle of concern. And if you hear the way I phrased it, there is a lot of blaming language there, because what we tend to worry about is always somebody else's fault. So there is no meritocracy in the organization. My boss is unfair. It's nothing I can do. As a result, you feel victimized. And as a result, anything that you do is reactive. So you tend to react to stressors like this instead of trying to manage them. If you worry about items that they are into your circle of influence, this means that you are focusing on bettering yourself, right? If you worry about how you spend your money, how you're going to manage your assignments, how you will progress in your career, how you will manage with the school fees, etc., etc. Worrying about things in your circle of influence makes you look for solutions. So it makes you proactive. When you're proactive, you are usually more energized, and you have a proactive behavior. So to recap, when you stress, identify what is stressing you and ask yourself, can I influence that? Yes or no? If you cannot influence it, then you just need to let go. If you can influence it, then this is something that you should be focusing on. Okay, I will worry about that. This is something I can influence, and in a moment we're going to see how we're going to resolve those situations. So what you want to do really is you want your circle of influence to be big and your circle of concern to be small. So you're spending very little time on things that you cannot do anything about, and you focus all your efforts on things that you can manage, right? Because this is the best allocation of your time.
And it's interesting because it's so manageable. The stress in general is it's so easy to recognize it. Often, if you really think about it, what's stressing you, right? You can identify it easily. I mean, whether you're gonna have 5 items on your piece of paper or an Excel sheet identifying the different stressors you deal with, that's a different story. But in general, we know what's stressing us, but I think it's just a matter of also reminding ourselves.
Yes.
So maybe reflecting throughout, I don't know whether it's a week, but maybe finding a way to reflect on the stressors for that week or a month or whatever works for you, just to...
Yeah, you really need to be more self-aware. When you start feeling those, the stress coming, you just need to take a moment and say, what am I worried about now? I'm worried about my assignments. Can I influence that? Yes, I can influence that. Right, so I need to sit down and make a plan. And it's as simple as that.
Mm-hmm.
And if there is something that you cannot control, then you just need to learn to let go. So I had a client who came in yesterday, just to give you an example that might help. And he said, he went on holiday with his family, and he arrived, he went to the Maldives, and then as they landed, he realized that he had forgotten his work phone back in Dubai. And he said that in days past, that would have been panic, because he would just try and find a way of how he can get his phone. Could somebody, put it on the plane and send it over to him so he could be on the next plane to the Maldives? And it would have been, havoc. He would stress for the full day until he found a solution. And then, he just decided not to do it, because if this is something that, what difference is it going to make? Can he actually influence that in any way? So he's like, well, can I influence that? What is it that I can do about it?
Mm-hmm.
It's not much I can do about it. So I'm here on holiday. The purpose of this break is to be on holiday. I want to be with my family. So I forgot my phone. Well, I just have to let it be.
Yeah,
because there's no chance that somebody will put it on the plane for me and ship it over to the Maldives. That's not going to happen.
Get one of your staff to come to Maldives, bring the phone
exactly.
right now.
That's not going to happen unless I invite somebody on holiday. It's not going to happen. So I might as well let go and let it ruin my holiday.
Yeah. And if you can't, I guess remind yourself of those things, you can always print the statistics that said 110 million people die of stress-related diseases every year, and then maybe that will do the jobs. Maybe if you read this in the morning and you say, is it really worth it? You know, especially the things I cannot control. So I think just having those sort of numbers in front of us might be beneficial as well.
Exactly. And if we go back to what we were saying before, so you have your circle of influence and you have your circle of control. So every time something is stressing you, the first question is this something I can influence? So if this is something you can influence, there is two ways to resolve it. You can respond to a stressor or to a situation, if you like, either by changing your approach or by changing your methodology. So let's assume that what is irritating you or what is stressing you is a difficult colleague at work. So, I mean, we all have those people. For some reason, we just cannot get along with them, right? They're difficult no matter what you say. Nothing's ever going to happen. They're always late for meetings, etc. So you try to reason with this person, but then, nothing happens. So please, we really need to do this. We really need to make this deadline. Can you please do your best? Well, no, I can't. So they're just difficult, right? So what is it that you can do in this situation? You can try and change your methodology. This is something that you can control. This is within your circle of influence. You can change your methodology. So take a minute and think, how do you approach this situation? So you go to your colleague and your methodology is to reason with them. If this fails, then probably you're going to fight with them, right? These are the two most common approaches when it comes to influencing other people's behavior. We either try to reason. If this doesn't work, then we fight with them. So either reason or you fight. Is there anything else that you can do? And it's so much more than you can do. There are so many ways to influence a person, and that doesn't mean to manipulate them or to kind of like try and convince them to do something they shouldn't be doing, but to influence them in a positive way. So how about, in a situation like that, you change your communication style. You say, why is Sophia constantly so difficult? So try and understand where the person is coming from. Why is it constantly so difficult? I try to reason with her. I try to fight with her. I try to threaten I will escalate to senior management. None of this is working. So what is going on there? Can it be that she feels threatened by this project because it's way out of her depth and she doesn't know how to respond? And can it be that she's new at her job and she's still kind of trying to figure things out? So try and see where the other person is coming from and try to adopt your communication style. This is another methodology that usually we spend very little time practicing, changing our communication style. Mm-hmm. Or, offering a win-win solution is usually another methodology that we don't practice a lot. So I want something from you, but how is this benefiting you? What is the win-win solution? We're doing that because, so instead of demanding, right? So something is in your circle of influence. You can do it by changing your methodology. Or you can influence it. This is the second way you can influence something, by changing your approach. Changing your approach means changing the way you're behaving in a situation, changing the way you see something. Let me give you an example. Let's assume that the line manager walks into your office and says, John or Mary, we have this project and that's what needs to be done. And you look at it and you're like, gosh, I don't even know where to start. I don't have the resources to do that. I don't have the knowledge to do that. I don't have the time to do that. So you start getting stressed, right? So how can you influence this? This is your project. These are your resources. Can you influence this? Yes, you can influence this. You can influence it by changing your approach. This means by changing your behavior. So I don't look at the project anymore and say, I can't do that. This is too much. This is too big. I don't have enough resources. But I look at the project and I just try to understand what needs to be done. I try to break it down in very practical, small steps. And I try to look at, what is required for me, and I start exploring solutions. So I start changing my behavior, right? Try to see it from a different point of view. Does it make sense to anybody, or I'm just talking and none of this makes sense?
Anybody have anything they want to share, their experiences?
Does changing your approach versus changing your methodology make sense in terms of how you can influence your stressors?
And while waiting for some answers to come in, I guess I do agree. I think that there's so many things that we cannot control. We can't do anything about. And I think it's just a matter of it's just like we can't control other people's, but what we can control is our reaction, as I mentioned earlier.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, you just have to think, and is it really worth it? And what am I stressing about? Is this going to matter? I've read like a little quote the other day, and it was whatever that's happening to you, just think, is this going to matter 5 years from now? And you can apply this a year from now, 2 years from, a month from now, is it going to matter tomorrow?
Yes.
And I think just asking yourself that question and really asking yourself that question will kind of put you back in check and say, okay, is this really worth it? And what can I do about it? And if there's something, let's do it. If not, then, what is the point of all this?
Exactly. And somebody said, can we please have a further example? Yes, so let's discuss another example of, change your approach versus change your methodology. So a client of mine was in a situation where he was facing some issues with his family. One of his children suddenly, had become very, very unruly, and he didn't really know how to manage this. And as a result, him and his wife, they sat down, they discussed, and they thought, okay, we need to do this. We need John, or whatever, the boy is becoming very unruly, so we just need to do that solution. Until they started changing their approach. So by changing their approach, they started looking at the situation from a different perspective. So instead of looking at the boy and saying, the boy has become very unruly, you change your behavior and say, the boy is not unruly. What is it that causes him to react in such a way? What behaviors, we see this behavior, we see the boy reacting this way, but what is really the cause of this? So you start looking at this from another point of view. Is the boy getting stressed? Is the boy, having a lot of demands on him? Or is the boy maybe of very high intelligence, and then, he doesn't feel mentally challenged? As a result, he acts out. And then what happened with this specific situation is that they realized that actually the boy was of very high intelligence. It wasn't getting challenged sufficiently, so he was acting out. But it wasn't until they identified that it was the way that they were looking at the situation that was causing the problem. So they were just seeing a boy that was unruly. When they started seeing a boy that is actually not challenged enough, they started seeing a boy that has higher mental capacity. That's when they started, seeing the solutions. And that's when the stress started going down, because then suddenly what they were saying was not a problem anymore.
Yeah.
It was just something that just needed development.
Yeah, and I think that this kind of approach can also work a lot with colleagues or anybody, partners, any or customers even, to really understand what is the underlying problem there. That it's not the communication, it's not A, B, C, and D. It could be It could be something completely unrelated. That maybe it's something happening at home. So yes. Maybe just depending on how close you are with the person, but maybe just addressing those issues or helping them address those issues, or whatever the case is. So I think it's just understanding what is beyond what's happening on the surface.
Exactly.
And what is happening, deep down. Yeah.
And with another example where it shows how you can change your methodology, right? A client of mine came in the other day, and he's part of a family business that is predominantly run by the father. So the father has all traditional ideas of how it should be run. The son has much more modern ideas that he wants to put forward, but obviously he's being vetted all the time by the father. So many times he's found himself that he's trying to kind of to explain the father, we need to do this because this is going to improve our cash flow, because this is going to increase our margin by X, Y, Z. And the father has vetted the decisions. As a result, he's getting stressed. What am I doing? Why am I spending my time here? I could be doing so much more. This business is going to come to ruins because my father is so old-fashioned. So when he decided that he can influence that, and he decided that he can change his methodology, what he started realizing is that his dad doesn't understand cash flows, and his dad doesn't understand margins. His dad is just a person who didn't go to university, but he's very, very business savvy. So as a result, he started presenting the situation in another way to his father. He started presenting things as opportunities. He started, involving the father in parts where the father could negotiate and bring prices down, and he used him in the areas where the father could add value. Mm-hmm. And by explaining things in another way to the father, he started getting then his agreement and his cooperation instead of his refusal. Does it make sense to anybody? I hope it does. Yes, okay, good. We're getting some yeses. Good. Yep, fantastic. Thank you. So, as I said before, look at what is stressing you. Make a list. Ask, can I influence this? If you can influence this, how can I influence this? Either by changing my behavior or by changing my methodology, which is the tools that I'm using. And by doing that, you will see more permanent results because you're getting yourself to start thinking in a way that is new. You're not going to be reacting anymore to something that is stressing you, because when you're reacting, that's when you snap. That's when you become irritable. Something, pops in front of you, stresses you, and it's an immediate response. But when you start, asking yourself, can I influence that? You suddenly have more control of yourself, you have more control of your actions, and you have more control of your reactions, which is the state that, you want to eventually be at. And I think that Snoopy says it best, right? Never stress on what you cannot control, and never worry about what isn't yours. I think this is the bottom line. Anything that you cannot control, just don't stress your time worrying about it. Utilize your time to find solutions on the items that you can influence, and not the other way around.
Yeah, so we should all print that one out for sure.
And put it on our desk. Yes.
Desks and fridges, and see it first thing in the morning.
I think that's the golden thought of the day.
It's so simple, right?
Sure.
So simple, yes.
It's so simple, yet it's not easy. You will find that, once you start practicing that, working on your circle of influence, in the beginning, many times you'll start doing that, and then you will regress and you will go back to your old ways. And this is normal, because what you're doing here is that you're trying to change the behavior. You've learned to behave a certain way. You learn to react. Stress is coming up. I panic. I react in a certain way. So it takes time to build a new habit, and you can build a new habit by practicing. So don't give up every time you regress. Just keep on practicing and keep on saying, can I control this? Can I influence this? If so, how?
Yeah. If anybody have any questions, anybody wants to add anything, please feel free. But I'm just gonna chat here with Sophia, and if hopefully you guys can join us in the conversation. But I think that also it also depends on. Okay, before we get stressed, a lot of times we lose sleep for whatever reason. Maybe we're out the night before, or maybe we have homework and we didn't study, but we're not necessarily stressed, but we just lose sleep. But then when you lose sleep, then it's like, a snowball going down the mountain. So I think it really is a circle, and it's just, a snowball just keeps going down, unless you stop yourself.
Yes.
And you can prevent that by getting good sleep, whatever the hours that you need, let's say 7-8 hours a night, you take care, you exercise, You have some kind of routine, schedule, whatever works best for you, right? Different things work for different people. So I think it's all so much connected. Just the overall the lifestyle that you live.
Yes.
So even if you're not stressed, eventually if you're not getting enough sleep, and if you are eating junk food, or if you're not exercising and releasing that energy and the stressors that are perhaps hiding somewhere, eventually you will get to a point where you're stressed, because then you're not going to be able to function at work.
Of course.
If you're not getting sleep or you're not eating well.
Of course. And it's so many factors that influence stress. It's change in everybody's life. So, you might be going through a change period. So, your reaction levels might be low and your tolerance levels might be low. A lot depends on the kind of personality that you are. Some people are kind of much more aggressive. They're very ambitious. They want to achieve a lot. So as a result, they might have a tendency to get more stressed because of fear of failure. Some other people are more laid back, so it takes much more to stress them. Also, like family history plays a role. If you kind of coming from, a family where you had parents that they had anxiety disorders, is very likely that you might be experiencing anxiety as well. This is not to say that you cannot prevent it or you cannot manage it or even not have it. Also, like traumatic events might suddenly put us into bad stress, and doesn't need to be prolonged, but like driving on the highway and having an accident might cause permanent stress because you had a traumatic experience. So there are a number of things that can put you into a situation, but it's all about how you manage it. And at the end of the day, if you find yourself in a situation where you cannot cope, you always need to ask for help.
Yeah, I agree.
Or you need to encourage those around you when you see somebody that is actually, not being able to handle it. You just need to encourage them to ask for help.
Yeah, absolutely. And somebody's asking or saying, I think that as humans we tend to focus. I think as humans we tend to focus and get stuck on the negative. So at times we just need to look at the positive of the situations. Though I'm fully aware that this is easier said than done. Yeah, yes, absolutely.
That is true. And that goes a little bit back to what we said before about how our brain works. When we see a threat, we tend to focus, right? So as a result, that's why our brain is more wired to focusing on the negatives, because our brain tries to prevent us from getting harmed. So that's why it's easier to kind of like focus on what is a threat, what is a fear, and what is a negative. And studies have shown that every negative thought is 90% likely that we're going to think it again the day after. So if I think of something negative today, oh gosh, I'm so rubbish in making presentations, which might be actually, I'm 90% likely to think of that again tomorrow. Mm-hmm. So that accumulates the effect. If you're 90% likely to think a negative thought again the day after, absolutely, it magnifies the effect of that negative thought. And that's why we say that it takes 3 negative thoughts to outdo a positive one.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I mean, we agree. We are what we think, and we create the future in our minds. So somebody says stress management techniques presented were internalized and analytical. What's your take on for someone who has sleeping disorders for about 20 years? Is it an addiction? From your experience, do therapy or treatments involving administrating of drugs actually help, or merely treating the symptoms?
Obviously, somebody who's been having sleeping disorders for such a long time, those techniques will not be sufficient to actually resolve the situation, and you will need more methodical advice on resolving something like this. On whether drugs or not can be the solution to that, again, this is my personal opinion, but I think that in situation where the cause of something might be psychological, like the sleeping disorder, it might be, you might be an insomniac, and that might be as simple as that, or it might be kind of like a psychological reason behind it. I would agree with you that sometimes drugs tend to only mask the effect. So they'll get you to sleep, fair enough, but unless you actually resolve the issue of what is it that keeps me awake every night, you're not going to see any progress. And that's when you need to work with an expert to actually get to the bottom of that.
Yes, I think it's beyond just regular stress at this point. But yes, I think that and a lot of people do turn to the medications and things like that. Once again, it's just a suppressor for that moment, for that time. But there's so much more. Yeah.
Yeah. So in situations like that, it's good to see a specialist. If there's somebody that who feels this way, then you need to encourage them to go and see a medical doctor and seek an expert opinion.
And somebody recommended that there's a great book. It's called Sleep Revolution. So Sleep Revolution, you guys can look that up. It sounds interesting, actually. I might actually read that.
Yes, absolutely.
So we're coming up to the end, but we'll stick around for a few minutes. So if anybody wants to ask questions or just chat with us, please feel free to use the messenger system and send any comments. We're here.
Yeah, or if there's anything that you feel that you need to discuss in private.
Yes, you can send a private message.
With any of us, yes, you can send a private message. You can contact Elena. I think have details
and you guys have Sophia's contact as well.
Yeah, you have my email here.
And of course, you can also connect with her on LinkedIn. In the invitation, I sent her website as well, so you guys can connect with her website as well. So. And yes, you will. I'm happy to email the copy of the presentation to those who have attended. So I'll probably send it tomorrow or next week. So. And now this is a perfect opportunity for those, especially in the GCC region, I guess, and maybe other parts of the world, to take time to unwind and relax with Eid holidays coming up next week. Time to reflect, time to disconnect. Don't take your work phone wherever you're going. Shut it off. The sun will not fall. All right, so everything will be fine. Most welcome. Thank you for joining.
Thank you all for joining. I hope that was useful. If you have more questions, don't hesitate to contact any of the two of us. And for those who are very close to the weekend now, have a great one.
Yeah.
And those who are traveling for it, have a fantastic time. And try to not to get stressed by the queues in the airports. Right.
Right.
You cannot control
the queues at the airport.
Just remember, right? And if your kids might have on it, then don't stress about it. You can control that. They're just children.
Somebody was mentioned earlier in the presentation about the sun. They said, well, it gets very hot, and it's very hot now. It's 38 degrees Celsius, and but you have to look at the good things of sun. You're getting, vitamin D, and it's right. I forget what was mentioned, but it was like, the sun rays for your skin, and then et cetera, et cetera. I forget. I'm sorry, I forgot what was said, but
and we could be living in a country where it's raining, and we never saw the summer, right?
Yeah, and look, I used to live in Washington D.C. I can't say I miss the cold winters. Right. I can't. I don't think I could do it again. Yeah. And I'll go into like 12 degrees Celsius, and I'm really cold.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I think I'm okay with it. I think I'll take 38 degrees.
Exactly.
So.
Exactly.
Yeah, the sun is the source of life. Well, thank you all.
Thank you all.